Next, scope of valuation has certain other major issues which needs to be taken care of. As one of the sirs had highlighted in the beginning of the chat, that scope of work is the scope of work lump sum nature, in lump sum nature. When I say in lump sum nature, it is that the client says, I want fair market value and distress value and realizable value. This is what we usually see in most of the banks and financial institutions. Even people who are novice, they might be layman in valuation, they might not know what is a valuation job. They just need to know what is the value of the property. I need to know what is the worth of the property. So this encapsulates the scope. The scope of valuation job is getting covered in a broad way. It covers a lot of things. Lot of things in the sense, lot of things. We don't know whether this covers original verification of documents. We don't know whether this covers, because there is a higher expectation from the customer. When I say valuation job can be any. The typical example which I can say is a major stakeholder being a buyer in the property, and that buyer wants to know what is the value. Say suppose this building is being constructed on a wetland, and you are being a wetland or an agricultural land, to be more easier in terms of understanding. What happens is he has provided you a possession certificate or say the land tax receipt, and he has fraudulently shown the copy as this being a dry land or being a non-agricultural land. If that document is fraudulent, and then again he is giving you approved plans and building permit that is also fraudulently prepared, what will you as a valuer do? You have a limitation there. But at the same time, when the nature of the work is, is the scope of the work is lump sum in nature, one of the potential risks that the valuer carries with him is, at a later point in time, if the customer gets cheated by the seller or some kind of an issue props up, the first thing he will come back to the valuer and say is, see, I had trusted you with this activity of doing the valuation. You should have told me that a property of X is hardly 0.5x or 0.2x or 0.1x. Being an agricultural land, the value will be wrong. The construction which is done is unauthorized construction. You didn't tell all these things to me. So what happens in the case of scope of work being lump sum nature? There is a potential risk where both people can blame each other. I can say as a valuer, no sir, you didn't tell me this. This was not part of my job. My job is as a valuation professional to value the property, and based on the documents you provided, I am giving my feedback. But here there is a potential threat where he might drag you to the court, and whether you are right or wrong is a different scenario. You will have to make rounds of the court for or unnecessary reasons. So that is very important, that the scope of work should never be lump sum in nature. Please ensure that you educate your client, get these things in return. Now the next one, is there a defined scope of work? Yes, this is very important factor. Is there a defined scope of work? He must tell you. If he is a layman, say a normal person is calling you and say, I want to value a property, I want to sell this property. Say he is a seller, he is an innocent guy, a nice guy. He is saying, I have all the documents, I am owning this property for the past 10 years or 20 years or 30 years and I want to sell this property. Can you tell me what is the market value so that I can show this valuation report to any prospective buyer? In that case, what will you do? You must speak to the, you must personally meet the customer, your client who is the seller. Ask him to come to the office, or you can visit his place and see the property. Based on that, you must get written instructions from him. As I say, the third point, the scope of works, is the scope of works verbal? Is the scope of works documented? These are very important factors to avoid a conflict at a later point in time. You must ensure that you are educating the client, saying that, sir, you want me to measure the property? Some people will say, okay, you can measure the property. No, you did not measure the property. I just got a survey sketch done. I had contacted a surveyor last week. I had got the survey sketch. So, okay, fine, that's great. In that case, you can document that refer that document and say that a survey sketch has been provided by so and so registered surveyor, and that has been relied upon and provided by the client. So your scope of work is getting reduced. If it is not there, you need to specifically ask him, do you want me to measure the property? Do you want me to verify the originals? Do you, originals are anyway his scope of work, you don't want to look into that. What is your this opportunity? What is the value that you see in the property? He may have a lot of stories to share with you. He may have some additional advantages to the property to share with you, which even as a valuer we might not be able to understand or find out. So these are all things which you must jot down, ask him to say, sir, either you sign this as a scope of works in my assignment so that I can proceed with the work. So each work should be defined. Is there a defined scope of work? Second is, if the work's verbal, if it is verbal, you can begin with the work. I am not saying that you need to, what I ideally you do is, in every case, I keep a mail communication and a chain mail from the beginning to the end of my communication of my assignment. That chain mail never gets broken. So if you take one email, you will get the whole conversation from the beginning till the end. And those customers who are not much educated or people who do not use emails on a daily basis, you must prepare a declaration or a letter in there. Either you can do it or ask them to write it in vernacular language. Say, for example, if it is in Kerala, I can ask him to write. Most of the people are literate, they know to read and write. I can ask them to write a letter in Malayalam saying that this is what my requirement is, please this. I will make him write that, sign that, give me, and I will document it in my physical file. I will put it as a soft copy also, just in case required. These are safeguards, or these are important aspects of a valuation job which are missed out mostly. Each scope of a work should be listed and detailed, right?